Welcome to the 9-owner Battle of the Hockey Pool Guides. It is the next set of tests where we place 45 guides against each other to see who will become the 2023-24 season's champion. More than 34.8 million draft scenarios were evaluated. Let's find out who won. The structure of the testing was similar to those done in the past, both for the 9-owner and 8-owner battles. Of note, we start with 5 qualification groups of 9 guides each. Those which do well move on into the semifinals, and, if successful there, move directly into the finals. Those which do not make it into the finals in the first go get a second chance. One of those guides will earn the last remaining spot in the final event by surviving 3 different repechage battles. Our first qualification heat included the 8-owner Kessel Run champion Steve Laidlaw, which he decisively won, mostly because he dominated in the long draft lengths. Second place went to Scott Cullen, who earned most of their victories in the 15-round drafts. 2 semifinal wildcard placements were earned by #Hockey and Fantasy Puck. Our next heat was dominated by 2 lists. Steve's cheat sheet won by taking more than 48% of all the possible simulations. DatsyukToZetterberg had a respectable win rate of 35%. 1 wildcard spot was given to Cream of the Crop. They were able to carve out a lot of wins in the 10-round drafts in order to claim that spot. The third qualification heat had Robert Koho crush the field, and they did so by improving their totals as the draft lengths grew longer. Second place was taken by Canadian Sand Goggles, who had a steady presence. Wildcard positions were given to Office Pools and Fantasy Hockey Helper using the Recency settings. The next heat had an even more dominant first place finisher. This time, Game of Chat earned over 60% of the wins. Fantasy Hockey Helper with the no bias settings managed to hold on to second place. Hockey Draft earned just enough to take a wildcard spot in the semifinals. The final qualifying heat saw Crome Aggregate Projections win with a little over 42% of the victories. Ultimate Pool Preview finished strong in the maximum draft lengths to pick up second place, and Left Wing Lock secured a spot in the semis as a wild card. These are the 18 guides which moved into the semifinals with their win totals from the qualifiers. Is your favorite still on the list? Will any of them improve on their performances to make it into the finals? Let's find out. Our first semifinal was won by Game of Chat. They had a slow start but improved in each draft up to the 30-round drafts. Steve Laidlaw came in second place based mostly on their stranglehold of the maximum draft lengths. 2 wildcard spots were taken by Chrome Aggregate Projections and Canadian Sand Goggles. It wasn't as close in the other semifinal. In this battle, Robert Koho earned first place with more than 49% of the wins. Second went to DatsyukToZetterberg. Ultimate Pool Preview and Steve's cheat sheet took the remaining wildcards into the finals, but each of them struggled in longer drafts. Like last year, 6 of the 8 guides which made the finals earned over 1.2 million total victories after 2 battles. Only Robert Koho had earned over 1 million in both battles, though. The only thing remaining is to see who would come out through the repechage for that final spot in the finals. The 37 guides which did not make the finals get one more chance to earn that last position by going through the repechage. Because each grouping is a multiple of 9, we were able to hold 5 repechage qualification heats because we had 5 lists in reserve, and the lists based on last year's rankings by points filled out the brackets. Number Fire, Fantasy First, and ESPN all participated in the 8-owner Kessel Run Draftathon, but they performed poorly in that, which is why they did not start in one of the original qualification heats. Brock Sagan, the win column, were originally excluded because they had fewer projections than all of the other lists out there, but if they are good, they can prove themselves in the repechage. The guy with the most to lose is Scott Cullen. Will they succeed in getting that remaining position? Let's see if they do. Our first repechage heat had a very close race for first. Pool Hockey won with 37.5% of all the wins, but Fantasy Hockey Helper, using the Recency settings, were on their heels with 35.6%. 2 wildcard spots were given to TJ Stats and the win column. The next heat was dominated by the daily Faceoff. They earned over 51% of the simulations. Second place went to Brox again with 16.6%. Wildcards were handed out to Top Cheddar and the Sports Forecaster. The third Repechage heat was a blowout. #Hockey crushed the field with more than 70% of the possible wins. Fantasy Hockey Decision System landed in second place, and Left Wing Lock managed to earn enough for a wildcard placement. Our fourth Repechage heat was won by Office Pools with over 54% of the wins. Second was secured by Fantasy Puck. Scott Cullen, the guide with the most to lose, did take a wildcard spot into the next stage of the testing. The fifth and last Repechage qualifying heat went to lineup experts. They kicked butt in the 30 or more drafts. Second place was pool experts, and the remaining wildcard slots were handed to DobberHockey and HockeyDraft.ca. Here is what the Repechage semifinal entrants look like with their win totals only from the Repechage events. These guides can win, but the Repechage challengers are not as strong as the guides which stayed in the main event. It will be interesting to see how Brox again and the win column perform in their next battles. This Repechage semifinal was a nail-biter. TJ Stats edged out #Hockey for first by just 0.7%. 2 wildcard spots were taken by Top Cheddar and Left Wing Lock. Sadly, Brox again and the win column were eliminated. The second semifinal was not as close as the first, but it did have 5 guides move on. Scott Cullen's hopes remained alive as they won this battle. Fantasy Hockey Decision System came in second place. 3 wildcards were given to the Daily Faceoff, Fantasy Hockey Helper with the Recency settings, and Pool Hockey. One thing which is interesting heading into the Repechage finals is that 4 of the guides did not win enough to make it to the main event semifinals, but were successful enough to make it all the way into the Repechage finals. Scott Cullen's chances seem dimmer since 4 other lists outperformed him in the Repechage so far. Fantasy Hockey Decision System took control from the 15-round drafts onward. They dominated the long draft lengths too, and by doing so, they move into the main event finals. Only Top Cheddar was able to mount any kind of resistance, but it was only in the very short drafts. Our main event finals have now been set. Listed are all the victories for each guide. Remember that the automatic and wildcard entries only had to go through 2 battles to get here. Fantasy Hockey Decision System has gone through 4. All but one of the guides maintained some success when they had the first overall pick, but Steve's cheat sheet was not one of them. We all know that Connor McDavid was the consensus pick for being the top point getter, and we all know that it turned out that Nikita Kucherov was the best player for points. Steve's cheat sheet only earned 1.4% of their victories when having the first overall pick. They are giving away a big advantage to their opponents here. We begin the final stage with the tail of the tape. Robert Koho was a contender for the Castle Run Draftathon, but didn't quite make it. They tend to do much better in longer drafts, and they avoid landing in last place. Game of Chat looks to be very similar in terms of their victory stats. They might have ended up in last place a little bit more, but they did earn one of the Kumite belts for the 40 owner deep draft. DatsyukToZetterberg has been highly decorated so far this season. They earned 4 Kumite belts. They were calculated to have the lowest missed opportunity score for their top 10 projections, and they were very close to winning the 8 owner Kessel Run. However, in the 9 owner drafts, they haven't dominated. They've been consistent, but will that be enough to earn them this title? Steve Laidlaw was the 8 owner Kessel Run champ, and in those 9 owner battles, they were dominant in long drafts. It is those short drafts where they give up a lot of ground. Crome Aggregate Projections is steady and consistent. Will that be enough to pass the other 8 lists, though? They were the 9 owner battle champion last season. Canadian Sand Goggles is going to be in tough. they don't have strong showing in any particular draft length. They do avoid being in last place, but that's not the same as winning. Ultimate Pool Preview has had some mild success during these battles, but nothing stood out. They have won the Kumite 16 and 20 owner battles, plus they earned the best missed opportunity score for their top 100, 300, 400, 500, and overall projections. Steve's cheat sheet was much more consistent from the 15 to max drafts. If everything falls into line, they could end up winning this title. And lastly, our Repechage winner Fantasy Hockey Decision System will have to show that their strength in the long drafts will be enough for a title win. Their weakness in the short 10-round drafts is very concerning. Our results will come up next, but we take a 15-second break to let you decide who will win. We are looking for a list from Puck Luck. We reached out to them after the season had started, but they would not provide their preseason projections without the purchase of a costly full season package. Steve's cheat sheet landed in 9th place. Way too many last place results. Fantasy Hockey Decision System came in 8th place. 7th place goes to Canadian Sand Goggles. Robert Koho surprisingly fell to the 6th spot. Ultimate Pool Preview made it to 5th place. Steve Laidlaw could not perform another upset and ended in 4th place. Bronze, or 3rd place, went to Game of Chat, which means our 9-owner Battle of the Hockey Pool Guides champion is DatsyukToZetterberg. Congratulations to them. They earned over 100,000 more victories than Crome Aggregate projections, who did well to earn 2nd place. Crome Aggregate projections were in it right to the end, but DatsyukToZetterberg pushed through with the maximum drafts to claim the top spot and the title. Here is another graph which illustrates how DatsyukToZetterberg started with a great lead, lost all of it, to only then recapture it at the very end. Game of Chat had 3rd place all sewn up. Steve Laidlaw had a weak presence in the mid-length drafts, which cost them. This table is another representation of how the battle was won by DatsyukToZetterberg for the 2023-24 season. We congratulate DatsyukToZetterberg for their victory one last time as we finalize this video with a bit of house cleaning. We not only determine who won, but also which draft position won. After 34.8 million draft simulations, 33.8 of them were won by the poolers picking 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. This is below the normal advantage that these picks usually have, but that's what happens when a non-consensus pick wins the scoring title. The next slide will show our past 9-owner Battle of the Hockey Pool Guides champions. We will have at least one more video coming out in the next week, which we look deeper into the Kessel Run Draftathon results. In the meantime, stay safe and enjoy the summer.